Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my review of Halloween Havoc 2024. Now, I typically don't do reviews for shows outside of the major WWE Premium Live events, but I figured, what the hell? I just finished Halloween Havoc and it ended fairly early, so I've got all of this extra time, all of this extra energy, so I figured I'd get on camera and tell you my overall thoughts on the show. We're gonna go over everything match by match. I'm gonna tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and where I could see things going down the line in the future of NXT. I'm also not gonna have my editor edit this. I'm just gonna throw it together myself since he's asleep right now, and this wasn't the video that we planned on doing, and I'm not gonna wake him up just to edit an NXT review. But this is your chance to let me know if you want more of this extra NXT content on this channel. I'm happy to do it if there's an audience for it. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I am confident that you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, folks, let's jump into it. Let's start things off by talking about one of the more anticipated matches of the night, that being the match for the North American Championship between the champion Tony D'Angelo versus Obafemi in a tables, ladders, and scares match. And yes, that's just fancy talk for a TLC match. It is interesting to note that this was a TLC match that was won exclusively via pinfall or submission. There was no climbing a ladder to retrieve a title, and you would think that wouldn't necessarily matter, but it does. And the reason why it matters is because there was no reason for either of these two to climb ladders, which meant that there was no verticality in this match, which meant that for a TLC, it's actually pretty lacking in those like shock and awe moments because there's no one falling off a ladder or anything like that. That being said, I felt like they still did a really good job at delivering some pretty awesome extreme moments in this match. The two that stand out is this awesome European uppercut that Obafemi delivers on Tony D'Angelo that puts Tony D'Angelo through the table, and then there's also the moment of the match, of course, is when Tony D'Angelo is zip tied to the ring as Obafemi is hunting down Rizzo, about to attack her, only for the strength of Tony D'Angelo as he sees Rizzo about to be attacked to take over as he rips off the zip ties, goes and spears Obafemi through the ropes, through a ladder that was already set up, that was propped between the apron, which is of course the hardest part of the ring, and the announce table. It was a pretty gnarly moment. And we had the match end with everybody from the family that was supposed to not be in this because Obafemi did his job by taking them out, and he said that the family wouldn't be there. They still made an appearance in this, and they were the difference maker because we had both Stacks, Luca Crucifino, and Rizzo hit Obafemi with a crowbar in the back to set up a spine buster from Tony D'Angelo to Obafemi for Tony D'Angelo to retain. Look, it was a fun match. It had a couple of fun spots, but as a TLC match goes, I don't necessarily think that this was the show stealer that a lot of people were actually expecting. Maybe I'm just a sucker for chaos, but when I see TLC, there's like a level of expectation that I have, and I don't believe genuinely in my heart of hearts that they hit that expectation with the chaos and violence that we tend to see from TLC matches. But even though I don't think that the crazy spots and the extreme nature of this match was really met with the expectations that we all had, I will say that this story was really well told, that they told a really simple, really cohesive story throughout this entire match. That being that Obafemi is this unstoppable monster that no matter what Tony D'Angelo did, he couldn't keep Obafemi down. But it was a simple story of a man that is enraged by seeing members of his family, people that he cares about, being put in the line of fire. And that's what ultimately got the victory for Tony D'Angelo as he saw Rizzo about to be attacked. It works with the whole narrative of everything that's going on between Tony D'Angelo, the family, and Obafemi being this impending doom force that he is. So although I would say that because my expectations were ridiculously high for this match, I was slightly let down, but it doesn't change the fact that I do think that the match was overall good if I just kind of take away my expectations from it, and the story and the narrative that the match told kind of fit nicely together. This does now bring up the question, what happens from here? Because it does seem like this feud logically should be over, right? Because we had Obafemi lose back-to-back to Tony D'Angelo, albeit not necessarily in the cleanest way here because it did turn into a 1v4, but it is nonetheless 2 times in a row. So I would imagine with Obafemi being heavily protected in this loss, that this really means one of 2 scenarios here. It either means he's going to go after Trick Williams in the NXT Championship, or maybe he just entirely bypasses that and goes to the main roster, because I feel like he's ready for the main roster, but it'd be nice to see him go after the NXT title first. As for Tony D'Angelo, I don't know. This division is in a bit of a reset when you lose somebody as much of a cornerstone as Obafemi was for the entirety of 2024. So I'm excited to see where the title and the family ultimately goes, but I think it should be away from Obafemi. I think that we should be entirely done with this feud. So overall, your boy still gives it a thumbs up. Next up, we have the women's tag team match between Julia and Stephanie Vaquer taking on Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. This match was one of the big selling points of this entire show. Seeing the team up of Stephanie Vaquer and Julia is a dream team, like something that hardcore wrestling fans would die to see, and we got it tonight. It's actually ridiculous how good Stephanie Vaquer and Julia are, but so is Roxanne Perez. I will say that out of the 4, Cora Jade did not necessarily meet the same levels of quality that the other 3 brought to the table. But there was some cool moments with Cora Jade basically channeling her inner Darby Allin from AEW, doing a coffin drop and a swanton bomb. That was pretty sick. But to be fair, this match really wasn't about Roxanne or Cora Jade. This was meant to be a highlight, a showcase of both Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, and I firmly believe that the NXT delivered in that regard. Especially when it comes to Stephanie Vaquer. My goodness, that woman is absolutely fantastic. And this is not Latino bias. I just genuinely think that she is unbelievably good. Her crispness in the ring, her ability to move between the different holds and to transition between move to move to move. The only comparison that I have, and this is like an unbelievably high praise to the point where you might argue that I'm reaching, the closest comparison is Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson. And if you're being compared in my eyes to one of the best of all time, then you've got something special. And Stephanie Vaquer absolutely demonstrated that in this match. I am glad that Stephanie Vaquer was the one to pick up the victory with what I hope is her new finisher, because she's been using this kind of like backbreaker finisher on NXT, and I just don't think that fits her very well. And she pulled out like a spiral tap. Like, think about like AJ Styles back in TNA days. It was a wicked way to finish the match. Julia looked fantastic in this as well, but I don't believe that she was the focus of this. I feel like much of the spotlight was on Stephanie Vaquer, but that being said, Julia was great in this match as well. This was a great showcase of Julia. I don't think it was as good a showcase as her match, for example, against Chelsea Green, but nonetheless, I felt like Julia was highlighted quite well in this match. So was, of course, Stephanie Vaquer. Meanwhile, Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade were really used as the vessels, the vehicle to showcase Stephanie Vaquer and Julia. Overall, I do think that the match did what it needed to do. It demonstrated to the world how absolutely stacked the NXT women's division is. It's not the best division in WWE. No. This is the greatest women's division on the planet. Like, the only comparison, the only organization that comes close in terms of women's wrestling, and it is better because, well, it's a women's organization, would be Stardom. Like, if you're being compared, if I'm comparing you in terms of quality to Stardom, that's insane. Like, there's nothing else that comes close. There's no wrestling organization putting on as good as star-powered a card when it comes to women's wrestling as NXT right now. And to really compound onto everything, they redid the debut of Zarya, formerly known as Delta, after this match. And I think they really just did it because for the majority of the people in the United States, the reveal of Zarya was cut off. So I feel like they just did it again, which I think is smart, because if a lot of people missed it, they should do it in a way where it's kind of organic and really just hits the same note. So tag team match, still gets a thumbs up from me as well. One last thing that's important to note is that Stephanie Vaquer pinned the champion Roxanne Perez. So does that mean that Stephanie Vaquer is the next in line for an NXT Women's Championship? Julia already got a chance. Maybe this sets up a triple threat. Maybe it's a fatal four-way. All I know is that the champion was pinned, so most likely the champion is going to have to pony up a championship opportunity sometime soon. Aside from professional wrestling, I'm also a huge fan of the NFL. I'm just like most NFL fans. I'm the type that stresses out over their fantasy team every single Sunday morning, but I also use my bookie to make games more exciting by putting a little bit of skin on the line and making some bets. I especially like using my bookie for the crappy games that I know are going to be a snooze fest because I somehow have to stay awake through New England Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins, and having a bet or two on that game is going to keep me invested. And if you happen to be new to this world of sports betting, then you can get started over on my bookie by using my code Santi. With that code, you're actually going to get a 100% deposit bonus. So that means it actually is going to double your initial bankroll. So let's say that you initially deposit $50, you're going to get an extra 50 on top of that to be able to make some fun wagers throughout the weekend. Again, an excellent way to make any Carolina Panthers game halfway interesting. But if you've already been using my bookie, you can also check out my bookie plus as well. It's their loyalty rewards bonus that gives you cash just for doing the thing that you were already doing. And that extra cash can be used for additional wagers, which can be used to make even more cash. But again, folks, if you want to be able to make your wagers this weekend with my bookie, don't forget to use my direct link that's in the pinned comment, or just use promo code Santi, and that will give you your 100% deposit bonus. Thank you to my bookie for sponsoring this video. Let's jump back into it. Now let's talk about the ambulance match between Ridge Holland and Andre Chase. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't love ambulance matches. In fact, it's not even that I don't like ambulance matches. I just don't like matches where you put dude in thing. I don't like ambulance matches. I don't like casket matches. I don't like stretcher matches. None of those matches have ever worked for me. But I'm trying to be objective here and trying to take away my personal preference out of things, but that's a really difficult thing to do in professional wrestling. That being said, even though I don't like the match type and how the match is supposed to end, I still had fun in the journey to the finish of this match. This match did get violent, which warranted considering the really personal feud that's currently going on between Andre Chase and Ridge Holland. To me, it was perfectly justified and it made sense with the context that we were dealing with. Some of the highlights would be the backdrop of Ridge Holland onto exposed concrete. That to me was actually the nastiest spot of the entire match. Just the sound that it made, you just knew that that hurt Ridge Holland like a motherfucker. We had a table spot on the commentary table. We had Andre Chase using the stretcher as a battering ram. We even had a moment where the crowd was chanting "We want pumpkins," and we even got the pumpkin being used as a weapon, which was great. The big spot of the match was definitely Andre Chase jumping off the top of the ambulance to do a crossbody onto Ridge Holland, but it's less impressive than what I'm making it sound because it wasn't a regular like tall ambulance. It was a short hearse ambulance. Think of Ghostbusters for those that don't know. But for all of the spots, I will always be taken out of the moment by how dumb the way that you win is. Throwing a dude in an ambulance and then closing the door. I mean, like, it's just not conducive of a fun way to finish the match, which is just not conducive of generating a pop, for me at least. But again, I have to admit, I was entertained throughout the journey up until we got to the finish of Ridge Holland throwing Andre Chase in there to pick up the victory. A couple extra things to point out. Ridge Holland got a new entrance theme. It's a badass entrance theme. Like, it's a really, really good one. Andre Chase came out in Freddy Krueger attire, which was pretty nice. And we even had like a Resident Evil-like moment where the door was about to close only for Ridge Holland's hand to grab Andre Chase's face like it was a zombie movie. Like, they really played up to the whole, it's Halloween shtick. Look, I think that you would enjoy it, and I will once again reiterate that the journey was fun, but I just can't get behind this match type, this stipulation. The story was good. You're going to like this. I didn't, so take it what you will. Next up, we had Kalani Jordan defending the NXT Women's North American Championship against the entirety of Fatal Influence. That is, of course, Fallon Henley, Jasmine Nix, and JC Jane. Now, the stipulation for this match, fellas, it's stupid. It was dumb. The stipulation that was decided through a wheel spin was that the challenger got to choose the stipulation, and they chose a gauntlet match, which meant that Kalani Jordan had to face all three of them in subsequent order. And, that might be the most unfair stipulation of all time, to the point that it's kind of ridiculous that that was the stipulation of this match. It didn't work for me, I'll say that. One of the benefits of this style of match is that it gave 4 women instead of 2 a spot at a WWE Premium Live event, which I'm all for that. Jasmine Nix, somebody that's still quite green in this industry, getting a PLE nod, good for her. I'm always happy to see JC Jane on a PLE, and Fallon Henley might be one of the most underrated women's wrestler in the umbrella of the WWE today. So the fact that they all got showcased, I'm happy for that, but it doesn't create a great championship match atmosphere when the champion has to go through 3 people. And huge shout out to Kalani Jordan's cardio, because basically doing 3 matches in one is a ridiculously impressive feat. So Kalani Jordan pretty handedly beat Jasmine Nix, and then afterwards she beats JC Jane, but JC Jane hits her with that awesome punch before Fallon Henley comes out, and then Fallon Henley and Kalani Jordan have a 6 to 7 minute match. And even though the odds are already stacked against Kalani Jordan, they stacked them even more by having JC Jane and Jasmine Nix get involved in the final fall to help Fallon Henley pick up the victory. Bear with me here, fellas. I'm losing my voice. It's getting kind of late, and I've been talking a lot because I just finished the stream and I'm doing this review. So Fallon Henley, because she's the one that pinned the champion Kalani Jordan, even though it was a 3-on-1 the entire time, she is your new North American champion. And look, I get it. You want to protect Kalani Jordan. I do think that WWE sees major star potential in Kalani, and so do I, and so do a lot of people. But I feel like this was trying a little bit too hard, and I just don't think that it landed the way that they wanted it to land. It's a heel victory for Fallon Henley, but from my eyes, it just sort of feels like a flat championship victory and a flat championship change, when recently championship changes are this super really hype thing, and it fell flat because it was a gauntlet match. But I am happy to announce that the ladies of Fatal Influence are going to continue to be in the limelight, because we had the in-ring appearance of Zarya, formerly known as Delta, in this. She went out there, destroyed Fatal Influence, hit Fallon Henley with both a spear and a reverse F5. Reverse in that she spinned them the other way that Brock Lesnar traditionally does. And I think people are going to be in for a treat with Zarya, because Zarya is fantastic. You can actually find a ton of Zarya's matches right now for free on YouTube. You can even find a bunch of intergender matches that she's had. She is great. And I think that it is a brilliant idea for her to be involved in not the main event scene, but in the women's mid-card and the women's North American Championship, because the women's main event scene is already so stacked. So you might as well stack the mid-card with Zarya. And yes, I see it. I now see it after people pointed out. She kind of looks like JoJo Siwa. I get it. And to end the show, we have the main event between Trick Williams taking on Ethan Page for the NXT Championship. And stick with me here. It's a bit of a mouthful. Make the deal, Devil's Playground match, which is basically just spooky, scary bloodline rules. It's just a false count anywhere match, guys. We've seen Trick Williams versus Ethan Page several times. This was, and I really want to reiterate this was by far their best match. I think that this might be Trick Williams' best match, in my opinion. I like this match for 2 reasons. One, it has a lot of violence in it, a lot of cool spots. But 2, it had a really great, simple story, which is that Trick Williams has never been put in a position where he's tasted his own blood. And in this match, Ethan Page made him taste his own blood. It was also a match that asked the question of Trick Williams, do you have it in you to dig deep and be the devil like Ethan Page can? And with the brutality of this match, with how the match finished, with Trick Williams willing to hit a low blow on Ethan Page, it answers the question that, yeah, Trick Williams absolutely has that dog in him. There were some really awesome moments in this match. My favorite was a moment where there was a jack-o'-lantern, which maybe from some people that don't celebrate Halloween or have pumpkins as part of their social ecosystem at around this time, it's a pumpkin with a carved face in it, and Trick Williams put that pumpkin on top of Ethan Page's head and then just beat him up while he had the pumpkin on his head. It was comedy gold. We had Trick Williams having internal damage at one point because he got hit in the gut with the steel steps, and it was the fakest looking blood that I've ever seen. But hey, it works with the narrative of Trick Williams needing to taste his own blood in order to be able to beat Ethan Page. We had an insane razor's edge from the top of a steel step through the announcer table that was nasty. We had a bookend on top of the steel steps. We had Ethan Page bring out a bag that had a bunch of nuts, bolts, and steel washers that he ended up eating the bump on. Honestly, like, the brutality in this was warranted and a lot of fun. I love the finish, however. The finish with Trick Williams about to hit Ethan Page with the steel steps, only for Ethan Page to hit a huge low blow on Trick Williams. And now that Ethan Page has the advantage, he's about to hit Trick Williams with the steps, and he says, "You don't have that devil inside you," only for Trick Williams to hit him with the low blow, hit him with the running knee finisher that he does to pick up the victory. So again, I think that this was their best match, and I think it might be Trick Williams' most entertaining match as well. The brutality was great, the story that it told, it was great, and there was even some post-match shenanigans with Trick Williams being attacked by Ridge Holland and then being double-teamed by Ridge Holland and Ethan Page, which then prompted Bubba Ray Dudley to run into the ring to save Trick Williams. It wasn't out of nowhere because Ridge Holland and Bubba Ray Dudley had been telling a story all throughout the night of Ridge Holland interrupting Bubba Ray Dudley. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that this is going to set up a tag team main event at NXT 2300 on November 8th, I think it is, which is at the old ECW arena, which makes sense why we have Bubba Ray Dudley. Overall, folks, I enjoyed NXT Halloween Havoc. I thought it was a fun show from beginning to end with a couple of lulls for me personally in the middle, but nothing that takes away from this show and makes it a not great show. I think it's worth a watch. That's it, folks. Thanks so much for watching this extra bonus video. It's just an extra bonus for you. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey and being a part of this channel. But that's it. Goodbye. Get out of here.